howls in the woods by night. The wolf is carnivore incarnate. He's as cunning as he's ferocious. Once he's had a taste of flesh, then nothing else will do. At night, the eyes of the wolf reflect only moonlight. They gleam a cold and unnatural green, a mineral, piercing color. But those eyes, those terrible, luminous sequins, are all you'll be able to glimpse of the forest assassins when they cluster invisibly round you as you go through the wood, unwisely late. The wolf song is the sound of the rending you will suffer, in itself a murdering. You are always in danger in the forest, where no people are. With great trepidation and infinite precautions, step between the portals of the great pines into the darkness. For if you stray from the path for one instant, the wolves will eat you. But the wolves have ways of arriving at your own hearthside. We try and try, but sometimes we cannot keep them out. It is winter and cold weather. In this region of mountain and forest, there's now nothing for the wolves to eat. It is the worst time in all the year for wolves, but this strong-minded child insists she will go off through the wood. She is quite sure the wild beasts cannot harm her, although, well warned, she lays a carving knife in the basket her mother has packed. The girl will take these delicious gifts to her reclusive grandmother, so old the burden of her years is crushing her to death. The child wraps herself up in a thick shawl, draws it over her head. She is dressed and ready. It is Christmas Eve. The malign door of the solstice still swings freely upon its hinges, but she has been too much loved ever to feel scared. Her father might forbid her if he were home, but he is away in the forest gathering wood, and her mother cannot deny her. She has her knife and is afraid of nothing. The forest closed upon her like a pair of jaws. When she heard the freezing howl of a distant wolf, her practiced hand sprang to the handle of her knife, but she saw no sign of a wolf at all, nor of a man, neither. But then she heard a clattering among the brushwood, and suddenly, on the path there was a very handsome young one, in the green coat and wide-awake hat of a hunter. She had never seen such a handsome fellow before, and so they went on the path together, laughing and joking like old friends. When he offered to carry her basket, she gave it to him. As the day darkened, it grew colder. The path snaked its way through the woods, but now there was only a half-mile to go, and there would be a fire, and hot tea, and a welcome, a warm one, for the dashing huntsman, as well as for herself. The hunter was familiar with this stretch of wood, and with a playful glint in his eye, engaged the girl in a bet. "I bet, if I left the path, I could arrive at your grandmother's house a full quarter hour before you." "I don't believe you," she said. "Besides, aren't you afraid of the wolves?" The hunter only tapped his rifle and grinned. "Is it a bet?" he asked her. "What will you give me if I get to your grandmother's house before you?" "What would you like?" she asked. "A kiss." She agreed, and the hunter left the path and ventured into the undergrowth. The moon was rising. She wanted to dawdle on her way to make sure the handsome gentleman would win his wager. She forgot to be afraid of the beasts. You can tell them by their eyes, eyes of a beast of prey, nocturnal, devastating eyes, as red as a wound. You can hurl your Bible at him, and your apron after, Granny. You thought that was a sure prophylactic against these infernal vermin. You can call on Christ, and his mother, and all the angels in heaven to protect you, but it won't do you any good. Off with his disguise, that coat of forest-colored cloth, the hat with a feather tucked into the ribbon. His feral muzzle is as sharp as a knife. The wolf is carnivore incarnate. When he had finished with her, he licked his chops and quickly dressed himself again, until he was just as he had been when he came through her door. He burned the inedible hair in the fireplace, and wrapped the bones up in a napkin that he hid away under the bed. All was as it had been before, except that grandmother was gone. Rat-a-tap-tap. "Who's there?" the wolf says in a high voice. "Only your granddaughter." So she came in. As the snowflakes melted off her lashes, she was, perhaps, a little disappointed to only see her grandmother sitting by the fire. But then he flung off the blanket and sprang to the door, pressing his back against it. The girl looked round the room and saw there was not even the indentation of a head on the smooth cheek of the pillow, and how, for the first time she'd ever seen it so, the Bible lay closed on the table. The tick of the clock cracked like a whip. She wanted her knife from her basket, but she did not dare reach for it, because his eyes were fixed upon her, huge eyes that shined like an inner fire. "What big eyes you have! All the better to see you with." No trace at all of the old woman except for a tuft of white hair that had caught in the bark of an unburned log. When the girl saw that, she knew she was in danger of death. "Where is my grandmother?" "There's nobody here but we two, my darling." Now a great howling rose up all around them, near, very near, as close as the kitchen garden, the howling of a multitude of wolves. She shivered and pulled her cloak closer. "Who has come to sing us carols?" she said. "Those are the voices of my brothers, darling. I love the company of wolves." She looked outside. 10 wolves, 20 wolves, so many wolves she could not count them, howling in concert, their eyes shining sequins in the darkness. She fastened the drapes, muting the cacophony outside, and took off her scarlet shawl, and, since her fear did her no good, removed that as well. "What shall I do with my shawl?" "Throw it on the fire, dear one. You won't need it again." "What should I do with my gloves?" "Into the fire too, my pet." Into the fire too went her blouse, gown, woolen stockings, and all the rest. The firelight shone through the edges of her skin. She went directly to the man with red eyes. She stood up on tiptoe and freely gave him the kiss she owed. "What big arms you have! All the better to hug you with. What big teeth you have!" The wise child never flinched, even when he answered, "All the better to eat you with." The girl burst out laughing. She knew she was nobody's meat. She laughed at him full in the face, ripped off his shirt, and flung it into the fire. The flames danced like dead souls on All Hallows' Eve, and the old bones under the bed set up a terrible clattering, but they did not pay them any heed. The blizzard died down. Snowlight, moonlight, a confusion of paw prints. All silent, all still. Midnight, and the clock strikes. It is Christmas Day, the werewolf's birthday. The door of the solstice stands wide open. Sweet and sound she sleeps in Granny's bed, between the paws of the tender